Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar on the Going Pro application process. My name is Dave Worthams. I am the Director of Human Resources Policies here at the Michigan Manufacturing Association. MMA, as you know, is the leading voice for manufacturing in Michigan, and for some time now, we have been very big champions of the Going Pro program. In fact, we've worked very closely with today's speaker, getting the program codified in Michigan statute, continuing to seek funding for the program from the administration every year and from the legislature every year. And we're glad to be able to bring funding back for Going Pro this year. And so we're very grateful to have this opportunity to pull together today's webinar. Just a quick reminder for those who are on the webinar, if you have questions along the way, please feel free to type those into our Q&A box. This is a Microsoft Teams live production, and so we'll have all those questions in the box, and once we get to the question and answer section of our webinar, I'll be reading those off to Stephanie, and we'll get you those answers. Speaking of Stephanie, allow me to introduce someone who, for the last 2 decades, has played a vital role in growing the state's workforce and economic development abilities. Stephanie joined the Bureau of Workforce Transformation in the year 2001. In 2013, she served as the Director of Workforce Policy and Strategic Planning for the Michigan Workforce Development Agency. And beginning in 2019, she's been leading LEO's Office of Employment and Training. And in that role, she leads the Bureau of the Services for Blind Persons. She leads the Michigan Rehabilitation Services, and she leads our efforts in workforce development. Throughout her career, Stephanie has worked to equip employers and workers with the resources needed for their success. And we've been very happy to have a great relationship with her. So friends, please welcome with me a Spartan who holds a Bachelor's of Science and a Certified Business Solutions professional. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Stephanie Beckhorn, the Deputy Director of Employment and Training for the state of Michigan. Thanks for joining us today, Stephanie.
Hi, Dave. Thank you very much. I appreciate being here today. And I wouldn't mind being a professor at Michigan State, but I am a proud Spartan for sure. And certainly appreciate the opportunity to spend a little bit of time on a Monday to walk through the Going Pro Talent Fund for fiscal year 21. And so today's presentation, just have you, we have some bullets here on the slide, slide 2. And so just a couple key things that we want to walk through. And first and foremost, I just want to, first of all, give a huge thanks to your members and to the industry as a whole. It has certainly been a challenge in fiscal, in this current calendar year as we begin a new fiscal year. It's unlike, any other time I think we've experienced before. So first of all, just a huge thank you, and really appreciate the industry and everything that you're doing to help move the state forward. We have 4 main objectives that we really want to walk through today. The first is the Talent Fund program overview, just to give you kind of a high level overview of the program and of the key components that we think are going to be very helpful for you to understand. We will give kind of a highlight of the highlights of the program and an award process kind of component, so you can understand the steps as they progress through when the application is released, or all the way through when we award the funding. We're really excited to really have a new system at our disposal, and this is something that we've talked about for many years with MMA, is really having a data management system that makes it a little easier for employers who are applying for grants, for the Michigan Works agencies who are submitting them, and then for the state as we process them and announce the awards. So we have a WeBlooms, which is our online management system that we're going to have the team kind of walk through to help you understand that system, which will be really important as you apply for your grant and as you work through and carry out your grant and close out your grant. And then we'll have hopefully a few minutes at the end for questions and answers. So next we're going to go right into the Talent Fund program overview. And I did want to let you know that besides myself here today, there's a couple individuals behind the scenes that are really critical. And these are our subject matter experts and our staff that really take the lead in the Training Fund program. And so that is Kevin Cortez and Virginia Zimmerman, and you'll hear from probably both of them today as we move forward on the presentation. But I did want to let you know there is a very large team that actually puts all of this together and really helps ensure that we can get the Training Fund dollars into your hands and really help you utilize them. So Talent Fund program overview, really at the end of the day, these are competitive awards to businesses to really assist in the training, developing and retraining of not only your existing workforce, but certainly new employees too. And we really want to ensure that this program really addresses the needs of businesses in our state to really ensure that they are competitive and that they grow, and that you really have access to a pool of talent that has the skills that you need, not only for today, but as you look out into the future and where your business is heading. So next component is really to talk about what does the Talent Fund do for an individual business? And really it helps you in addition to providing in the demanded training and skill set that employers need, it really does focus on the individual and the individuals that work for you. We want to ensure that individuals are put on a successful career path, that they, have access to better employment and higher wages as their skills increase, their responsibilities increase, their duties increase, and hopefully that translates to you from a production standpoint and increased production from your staff and really impacting your bottom line. It is really important that we focus on training that leads to an industry recognized credential and transferable skills that are adaptive to the changing environment that we find ourselves in. And so, we really want to address the educational skill level of individuals in Michigan. And the Training Fund program is really tied to the governor's initiative 60 by 30, which is increasing the credential attainment rate of Michiganders to 60% by the year 2030. And that's just really critical because all of the data will say, the states that have the most educated, workforce are the ones that are going to win. And so that's why we think it's so really important to continue to evolve the Talent Fund and really focus on business needs and also the needs of the individual, ensuring that they're getting industry recognized credentials. So now let's talk a little bit about training. So important to note, the training programs are customized for your needs. These are really specific to the employer, and that's why it's really important for you to be engaged with your Michigan Works agency as you're putting an application together. The training usually lasts less than 3 months, and they're completed typically in about 6 months. And again, when that individual completes the training, they are going to receive a credential for that skill set. So the training can be classroom or customized training, up to $1,500 per person. It can also be on-the-job training, very specific skill sets, for that individual that they learn right on the job. That is also up to $1,500 per person. And, we're really proud of the fact that it's also connected to USDOL registered apprenticeship programs. And, really understanding that an apprenticeship program typically takes more than that 3 to 6 months I just mentioned. So, really focusing on that first year of a registered apprenticeship program. And you'll see that the dollar amount there is doubled, and it's up to $3,000 per individual. Okay, so I've mentioned a couple times Michigan Works agencies, and it's just really important to understand the, the role that the Michigan Works play. They're a key partner when it comes to the Going Pro Talent Fund. And, that's really your first point of contact, is really to reach out to your local Michigan Works agency. There's 16 of them across the entire state. They cover every county in Michigan, and to work with them to complete an application. And so the timing is really good for our presentation today, because right now, Michigan Works Agency's business service staff are in the process of conducting fact-finding sessions with employers to really assess that talent skills gap and what suitable training might look like. And, what is the impact of training? If we identify the suitable training, how will the training impact the individual employee? Really, they work to help identify individuals in the current labor pool that do not have the skills a company requires. They're helping you address recent issues related to the impact of COVID on your business, retirement, and really just wanting to understand, get a firm overview or picture of your business, and then help address the gaps that they've been identified by putting together a really strong training application that will hopefully be, awarded the funds. So Michigan Works, so now you've worked with your Michigan Works, just want to talk a little bit about workforce development and the team that's here today. So once you've worked with your Michigan Works agency, you've put a strong application in. The MWAs then submit the applications to the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, specifically to workforce development on your behalf. And then the LEO team really goes through and evaluates those applications, looking at the demand, looking at the training, ensuring there's a credential of value at the end. And then, I puts the process through and awards the funds at the end of that review process. And so there's an application, there's scoring criteria, there's incentives for employers. And so there's lots of tools available, and we'll talk a little bit later on where you find those tools and how you ensure that you have all the information that you need to successfully complete your application. And it just can't be understated, the value of the program. And so there's some statistics on the screen. And for those of you who may have gotten a grant prior, this is probably something you can relate to. But the scope and the impact of this program has just been incredible. It has been a game changer for our state. I have a lot of peers in other states that I work with that are very envious of this program because of its success. And certainly, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank MMA for their support and their continued partnership. We have worked very closely with Delaney and Dave and the rest of the team since this, initiative took off, and we just couldn't be more proud of it. Because when you look at over $98 million and over 94,000 Michiganders who have been trained, there's just, the impact is so incredible because that training results in additional wages in the pockets of these employees. And it results directly in a more productive workforce, a workforce that has the skills that you have identified is a gap currently for your business. So that was a little looking back. Let's look forward now to highlights of kind of this 21 fiscal year and the award process that we're going to be walking through. So, there was a lot of uncertainty with the state's budget given the impacts of COVID, but we were, very cautiously optimistic on the program. And when revenue estimates started coming in closer to the end of last fiscal year, we were so ecstatic to see that our state has rebounded quite nicely from the pandemic. And that resulted in a $27 million budget for the Going Pro Talent Fund. And so it really is so critical because we know that there are skills gaps out there that you are facing. And we know that the competitiveness of Michigan is really at stake here when we have over 500,000 individual openings that we know are going to need to be filled over the next 5 to 6 years. And we have a lot of work to do. We have to address those skill needs of our industries here in Michigan. And so the Going Pro Talent Fund is certainly one of the key components. Okay, so the upcoming grant cycle. I mentioned before that this is a good time to be having this conversation. The application period opens next week. It is a 4-week application period. So again, that's the 4 weeks to really meet with your Michigan Works agency to put together a really solid application, and then to let the Michigan Works agency then submit the application on your behalf to workforce development. Workforce development will then take about 4 weeks through the major holiday season towards the end of this calendar year. And then we will announce awards in the mid part of January. So with a late start to the budget cycle, we've had to compress a little bit on the review process internally at the workforce development side. But we've got a big team brought together, and we're going to really work day and night at the end of this calendar year to get through the application review process and as quickly as possible get those awards out so that you can have your training needs met. So let's talk a little bit about the scoring of the criteria and what we base an award and how we review one award versus another award or another application that has been submitted. So the criteria and incentive is really been evolved over the last 7 years with a really strong focus on continuous improvement and getting direct feedback from our Michigan Works agencies, from industry associations like MMA, from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. And so we really pride ourselves in continuously looking at the needs of business in our state and ensuring that we are doing everything we can with the talent fund dollars to meet those needs. So a couple key changes this year. So employer demonstrated training need, really that rationale, which is the largest part of the application, demonstrating that you have a business case for needing dollars to train either new hires or your existing or incumbent workforce. What's new for this year is we've included a COVID impact as a business case, right? You can demonstrate the impact COVID has had, whether it be in layoffs because of COVID, or you've reduced full-time staff to part-time, or your earnings and your revenue, sharing your second quarter sales versus last year in second quarter. So those are just some examples how you could potentially demonstrate that your business has been negatively impacted by COVID. This is not a separate standing criterion. It's really, again, it's part of that larger rationale. So that's one area that we've made a change this year. Another area where we've slightly tweaked it for this year is on the proportion of new employees that you're training versus an incumbent workforce. So we have dropped the available points, and we've lowered the threshold of the percent of new employees versus incumbent workers. We've prior put a strong emphasis on new hires versus incumbent workers, but we understand that as a result of the pandemic, right, you may be trying to bring workers back. You may be trying to move people from part-time back to full-time versus bringing new employees in. So you've made a change. We do anticipate in subsequent years that we'll once again move to a stronger emphasis or prioritization of new hires. High school completion is another key priority and a new item for this year. It's not, this is where you see the and incentive in parentheses. So we are going to incentivize you should you help either a new hire or one of your existing workers, help them with completing their high school diploma or equivalency. We understand that is really the foundation to put someone on a strong career path, is really needing that high school diploma or equivalency. And so we want to incentivize you for helping these individuals. And we'll get into a little bit more specifics a little later on what that means. The balance of the items are really carryovers from prior years that we continue to prioritize. Employer contributions, that the employer, right, has, contributes to the cost of the training. We'll get to what does that mean specifics in a little bit. An emphasis on small businesses, an emphasis on registered apprenticeships, training that is tied to college credit, and smaller sized awards. So that's kind of an overview of the scoring criteria and some incentives. So the award process. So we said we'd announce the awards in the first part of January 2021. That means training start dates will be February 1st of 21 moving forward. You do have 12 months to complete the training. So the 12 months must include the full 90-day retention period for the last person hired if they're a new person on the plan. So that January 31st really represents the last day of reimbursement for training activity. So that's really some key dates, right? So now we announce the awards in January, you start the training February 1st and after, and then you have 12 months because we understand there's, things that may impact your business, and maybe you thought you wanted to start February 1st, but there's something that pushes it back. We provide that flexibility so long as you complete within 12 months. So now let's talk about some of the highlights for this new fiscal year. New hire and apprentice eligibility. So again, who is a new hire? A new hire is defined as an individual that was hired 30 days prior to, on, or after the effective award date. So you're awarded a Going Pro Talent Fund, a grant, and then you've got that date. And so your new hires, there's a little bit of play in there as far as how we define new hires. A new apprentice is one that has been registered by the U.S. Department of Labor on or after January 1st. So you could have brought them on before you even were notified that you got an award, if we're doing the announcement of the awards in the first couple of weeks of January. And a first-year apprentice may still be eligible for reimbursement if the proposed training has not occurred. So you have an apprentice already, they're in their first year, but the training that you're going to put them through hasn't occurred prior to that award date. They could also be included. A little bit more on some highlights. So keeping with the apprentice theme, let's talk about apprentice eligibility. The apprentice training includes both the related technical instruction and on-the-job training. And 100% of on-the-job training may be acceptable, provided the submission of strong rationale. And this is, for an example, this would be with the apprenti model, if the related technical instruction has been paid by another source, or the related technical instruction occurred prior to the effective date of the award or otherwise. So again, this is new. First year apprentice new hire retention may start at the beginning of the on-the-job training or the related technical instruction, whichever comes first. So continuing with the 21 highlights, we do have some targeted incentives. I mentioned that high school diploma equivalency. So we understand that it's becoming harder to find skilled talent to fill jobs. And so we really are encouraging employers to expand your talent pool to try to recruit individuals within, you know, as large of a pool as you can find. And there are some specific targeted populations where we are providing an extra incentive should an employer, you know, focus on these groups. So there's, if the individual that you that's part of your training plan and that you're going to fund their training through the Going Pro Talent Fund, if they're a veteran or an active military reservist, who again, we incredibly are thankful for them serving our country. So if it's either of those groups, an older worker or a returning citizen, new trainee, there's a $500 incentive to the business. And as I mentioned before, high school diploma or equivalency is new. So the first ones I mentioned, the veteran, active military, older worker, returning citizen, those incentives are new hires. So again, we are incentivizing you to hire someone and bring them on to your existing company and bring them in as a new employee. But it can be a new or an incumbent worker, again, for that $1,000. So we double that incentive for you if one of your new hires or your existing workforce doesn't have a high school diploma or equivalency, and you're going to support them, there's a $1,000 incentive. And again, any of these incentives that we talked about, they're really to help offset the additional cost of training. So eligible and ineligible training, you know, we really count on the MWAs to look in depth at every requested training to make sure that it's eligible before you get too far along in the process. Employers are really expected to be active in the design of the training. And again, it must lead to a credential for a skill that's transferable and recognized. Adult education remains ineligible. Adult education, however, may qualify as that targeted population incentive that I just mentioned before. So just kind of keep that in line. Online training, we know all training outcomes must be part of the overall plan. Online training is something that we've traditionally got questions on, and right, we would expect just as many or more questions regarding online training, given the current environment we find ourselves in with COVID and with the pandemic. Online training is allowable so long as it can't be obtained locally, that it's training is not within a reasonable travel time or not offered in the classroom. We want to make sure it's instructor-led and, again, tied to that credential. So just wanted to highlight that. So an eligible employer. So who is an eligible employer? Private sector employers only, and for-profit and nonprofit. No quasi-public-private entities, even if they're considered a nonprofit 501c3. Unions are unique in they're not eligible to apply as an employer. However, they are a very strong partner of the Going Pro Talent Fund, and they may be an eligible training provider where they may be providing that actual training. So they're part of as you develop that application with Michigan Works and identify training, we certainly think they are a really important group to tap into and can be very beneficial when providing training. It's important to note that if an application, so I'm moving on to kind of highlights in vetting that we do at the state. Once we've scored applications, and if they've scored high enough, the team does vet the applications through the Department of Treasury. And it's really important for you to understand that you must be in good standing with the Department of Treasury and that there's not outstanding fees that you owe or there's a balance that you owe. We know that sometimes happens. So what we would do is if we find that if Treasury comes back and says, this business, there is an outstanding obligation to the state of Michigan, we will send you a letter, and we will copy the Michigan Works agency so they're aware what's going on. And, we provide you 60 days to resolve it. And we've been pretty successful in helping employers resolve that issue. But just remember, I would encourage you right now that it's really important that if you are aware of any outstanding obligations that you have to the state, resolve those right now, because you don't want to do it on the back end. You don't want to slow yourself down once you've been identified as scoring high enough to receive funds. So just really encourage you to focus on that right now if that is a situation that applies to you. So employer contributions, I mentioned a little bit earlier that, one of the incentives or one of the criteria in the application is an employer demonstrating, that they are contributing. And so employer contribution categories are, the wages. Employees are still on the clock, if you will, while they're in training, or if they have to travel off-site to training, that you pay for those costs. If there's equipment or software directly related to the training that the talent funds are going to support, or if there's supportive services like tuition reimbursement, daycare assistance, or any additional transportation assistance, those can also be counted as employer contributions. And then, overhead administrative cost. So there's lots of opportunities where you can demonstrate that you are also contributing to the training of your employees, in addition to what the training fund would cover. So I want to talk a little bit now about industry-led collaboratives, or ILCs. What we've been talking about so far is really individual employer grants. You individually are submitting a grant via the Michigan Works agencies. We also strongly encourage businesses to come together, and we say an industry-led collaborative is a minimum of at least 2 companies who come together because they have a shared workforce problem that they're trying to address, either classroom or customized training, and they really, the data demonstrates that there's this common problem, and by working together, and we've even seen competitors that come together as ILCs, it really increases the competitiveness of all the employers that participate while really creating the training and filling those demands. So again, you still are collectively, the employers are putting and demonstrating the need together, identifying how that training should be delivered. So these are separate applications, separate scoring, and we have a separate pot of funds that that are used for ILCs. ILC applications may be submitted beginning in April. So an ILC application is not live right now. It will be available for you to submit later next year. So really your focus right now is on individuals. But I do want to note, you as an employer may be awarded an independent award plus an ILC award. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so I went through an incredible amount of data in a very short period of time. And so I want to direct you to where you can find some of this information that I've talked about. So our michigan.gov/talent fund is a great website for you to kind of bookmark and check out. It's got a lot of information, overviews, fact sheets, an employer guide, really walking you through that application process. And so I'd really encourage you, we post a lot of guidance documents on our website and or within the data system, the WeBloom system. So just really encourage you to keep checking back there and really, understanding all the resources that are out there to help guide you through this process. So I'm going to turn it now over to Kevin, who's going to talk a little bit about our work-based learning online management system. And again, we're just really proud of this system. It makes it easier for you. It makes it easier for the Michigan Works Agency, and it certainly streamlines it for us here at the state. So we're going to have Kevin go through WeBlooms, and then we'll wrap it up with some time for hopefully a few questions. So Kevin, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great, thank you so much. So this will be a pretty broad overview of WeBlooms, our work-based learning online management system. So I want to show you kind of what it looks like inside the system and talk about the benefits of this online system a little bit. And we'll get a chance to show you some screens so you can see what the actual application looks like in WeBlooms. So what you're seeing on screen here is the main landing page. So when an employer or MWA visits Weblooms, this is the first thing they see, and this is the sign-in page. On the next slide here, we've just zoomed in a little bit so you can see what the actual sign-in looks like. And this is just a great example of the online system and how we've made it kind of as intuitive as possible. So this shows you on the left side here, you've got some guidance built directly in, and throughout the application where relevant, we have guidance and different instructions and things like that built right in. So hopefully anyone using this can kind of follow through with all of the guidance we have and what's on screen and work their way through the application. So it's a pretty great system. On the next slide here, I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of Weblooms. So this system development started in 2019 to address programmatic needs. Essentially, the program's growing and we have more applications each year, so we needed a way to efficiently process the incoming applications and keep better records. There's more benefits we'll talk about, but I just want to kind of elaborate on Weblooms. It is being built as we need the functionality. So one of the really great things about it, we work with the developers almost daily to build and design the features that we need. And so currently right now in the system, we have all of the features for the actual application cycle and the application period. In the future, we will be designing and building all of the award management features and any of the features that allow review and monitoring of the program over time. So it's pretty great being built in real time as we need it. Here on the next slide, we're going to talk about some of the benefits of Weblooms. So you can read through the list here, but essentially the fillable online application, it replaces any paper records, and these applications and all of the information is automatically stored in a database. So it's a wonderful record keeping system and database, but we also have some near real-time indicators of performance. So we can track various metrics as information is being entered. So it's a wonderful way to sort of see what's happening in real time. And as we build out some of these evaluation tools, there'll be some great reports that we can generate and employers and MWAs can generate as well. So on the next slide here, I want to talk about who is using Weblooms. So we have over 150 MWA staff people who are using the system, and there have been over 1,000 unique employer accounts created. So there's a lot of folks in the system and utilizing it. It's pretty widely accepted, and we've gotten a lot of great feedback about ease of use, and overall, everyone that has adopted the system has been very comfortable with it. So each section of the application here is filled out electronically, and here's where I want to show you some of the screenshots of what the system looks like. So after that original landing page that we showed, this is what's called the employer dashboard. And you can see on the screen here, there's two sections. So that first section is titled authorization requests. Before applying, an employer must essentially ask permission through the system to be able to create an application. So they would submit an authorization request to their MWA, and once that authorization request is approved, they can then create an application. And as you'll see in the bottom section on the screen there, that's an example of what an application looks like that's been created. And that's where they would click on it to view it and edit it if applicable. So on the next screen, this is a checklist while they are editing their application. While anyone is editing an application, this is displayed at all times on the left side of the screen, and it shows progress towards the completion of an application. So if a section's been completed, you get that green check mark there, and you can save and continue, move on to the next section. This is a great way to know that you've filled out everything that you need to fill out to submit your application. Here we have the employer information. So this is a mock example of an application that was created just to give you, a visual, but you can see that the employer name, FEIN, and all of these various fields are captured in Weblooms, and all of this it goes to a database that we can then report out on. So when we need to generate a report about the business clusters that are benefiting from Talent Fund, we can see all of the different, for example, on this screen, business clusters that would benefit from Talent Fund. This would be an example of one of the text fields. So here is where an employer would provide their introduction, and describe their business and who they are. All of the text is entered in these rich HTML text editors, so they have a lot of ability. They can add tables, charts, things like that. They can also attach files. So if anyone wanted to attach supporting documentation or images, they could describe them here in the text box and then attach supporting documents. So that's where anyone would go to describe a business case. Here's where a training plan would be built. So the entire training plan is built in Weblooms, and you go ahead and start by creating the training providers. So all of these are interactive fields. You can click on them, and there's drop downs that you can select different types of training providers, what credential is received upon completion of the course, where the training provider is located, etc. So this is all programmed in the system, and you go ahead and enter screen by screen. As you enter this information, it builds your training plan. So on the next slide here, we have an example of in the system what it looks like. So here are 3 training provider examples that have been entered. So you can see on this mock application, there's OJT on the job training. There is a community college and a vendor as a trainer. So this is just a little visual of what it looks like as you're filling this out in the system. After you enter the training providers, you would then continue to build that training plan in the system. So here's where you would enter the specific course that a training provider, is providing. You select the training type, enter in the dates of when the training will occur, and the system is programmed to help calculate those costs of training. So you just enter in the cost of the course per person. Later on, you will add in the new hires or employees that are participating in that course, and the system calculates the total cost of all training. You could go ahead and advance to, this is an example of some training courses that have been entered. So again, these are all example courses, but it gives you a visual of what it looks like and what you can build. You can see the training cost. Here's where you would go ahead and enter the employees. So one thing I just want to point out, you can add employees individually. So if it's a smaller company, you could, say enter 5 or 6 to 10 employees individually. If you had a long list of employees that were going to participate in training, you can download a template. You can then fill out the Excel template with the names or the position titles of the employees or new hires, and then you can upload them in the system, and the Webloom system will read the Excel sheet that you've uploaded and generate your list of employees for you, so you don't have to manually type every employer. So thought that was a pretty cool feature we just wanted to highlight. Moving on here. Some other highlights of the system. The system, before something is built and as it's being built, it's tested by our MWA users. So there was some testing that occurred over the summer, and some previously tested improvements and new features were successfully moved to the live public site as of August 21st. There will be updated user guides that detail all of those screens that we ran through and step-by-step how to click through each section. Those will be provided by November 2nd, and employers can currently prepare in the system prior to November 2nd. So they can go into Weblooms, create account credentials, and submit those authorization requests asking for permission to create an application upon November 2nd. As I said earlier, Weblooms is currently being developed, and we are working to align our priorities with program needs as the program moves forward. So right now, the finishing touches are being put on the application in the system before November 2nd. Then we will be building some functionality around scoring and awarding. And in the future, we will continue to build the data collection, reporting, and anything regarding our historical data load. That will be ongoing until the system is completely built. Thank you. So I'd like to pass it back to Stephanie for questions, suggestions, feedback.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Appreciate you walking through that process. And like I said, we're just really, really excited. I think everyone would agree submitting an application through that system versus pen and paper is something, right, even pre-pandemic would be something we would all want to do, and just becomes even more, more important and more valuable given where we find ourselves today. So Dave, we really wanted to leave the rest of the time to, focus on any questions your members may have. and happy to take any of those.
Fantastic. Yeah, we do have some questions that have been turned in, so I'll just work my way through these and continue to get some information out. Question we had was let me read it verbatim. Sorry, I might have missed this. Are the incentives only for new hires, or are existing employees who meet the defined criteria eligible?
So that's a great question. The incentives, with the exception of the high school completion, are for new hires. So, an active military, a older worker, a returning citizen, that would have to be a new hire, and that's $500. The $1,000 incentive for helping an individual complete their high school equivalency or diploma, that is for a new hire or an existing worker.
Okay, cool. Just real quick, a question we had, what qualifies for as an older worker? What's the age range for older workers?
That's a great question. And Virginia and Kevin, I believe it's 55 and older. Can you confirm that for me?
I am going to look for that confirmation. I don't want to misspeak. So we'll have that for you. Just a moment. I believe that's correct.
Okay, while we're doing that, we've got another question here. The program looks really good for new employees. 2 questions. Can we get this presentation deck sent to us, and who can I contact should I have any questions or need clarification?
So yes, we are happy to share the presentation that we walked through today. So we will get it to Delaney and Dave, and they can ensure it gets to each of you. And questions regarding the application and regarding any questions you might have, we would really direct you to your local Michigan Works agency and your business service rep. And Dave, I believe we've given the list of key contacts for each Michigan Works agency, but if not, we can certainly, when we send along the presentation, we can send that along so each one of your members know exactly who they should connect with for any follow-up questions.
Yeah, we sent that out earlier, and we're glad to do it again just to make sure that people have the right contacts for their MWAs. Next question deals with the January 1st date. Will the January 1st date for defining new apprentices apply for industry-led collaborative funding applications as well?
That's a great question. I'm going to ask Kevin or Virginia if they can take that question.
We are, yes. So the new hire date, what we're really looking for is first-year apprentices, and I'm sorry, I was multitasking. Was the question about apprentices or specifically ILCs? I'm so sorry.
No problem. So the question was about the January 1st date for defining new apprentices. Will that date apply for industry-led collaborative funding applications as well?
Yes. So the dates are meant to be the same. The 12-month training period is meant to be the same. The ILC applications and plans, those really run much more short-term than, say, a traditional independent application. They're strictly classroom-based. So the training plans don't run as long, hence we can start, or employers are able to start the training a little bit later and still complete their entire plan by the 12-month period. So they do run concurrently, and the dates would apply as well to the ILC.
Great. And Virginia, thank you for, I see in the chat that you published the answer for our older adults question. That age range for older workers is 55 and up. Next question that we have deals with WeBLOMS, I should say. On the WeBLOMS program, do you have to complete one step at a time, or can you skip around?
I can go ahead and take that one. So that's a great question. Yes, you can skip around. There are some initial sections that you have to complete. So once you start your application, you have to agree to the terms of service and make sure your employer information is entered correctly. As soon as you have that, you can go ahead and skip around. I do want to make the note that as you build your plan, certain sections, you are populating certain sections. So for example, you couldn't enter your training courses until you've entered your training providers. More details would be provided in the user guide, but for the most part, yes, you can complete sections in whatever order you see fit, as long as you are filling out information that is building the subsequent sections before you want to go to those sections.
Great, thank you. I love this next question because it's so full of optimism, and we don't have enough optimism in our lives these days. The question reads, in the event that the legislature appropriates more money for going pro, or that all the awards aren't given out in the first place, will there be a second round of applications? And if so, will I have to resubmit my application for that one?
So I agree, Dave. I love the optimism. As I mentioned, the program has been wildly successful, and with training over 94,000 individuals. The demand and the applications that are submitted and the funding that is requested far exceeds what we have available. So I guess I make that point to say, apply now versus saying, well, there might be, right? So you're saying I have a chance, right? There might be some dollars later this year. I would really encourage you to fill out an application now, because those funds are most likely going to be, obligated through this initial application process. Now, there's a big stimulus package, or there's money coming to the state through CARES Act or something where the decision is made to put additional dollars into going pro, I think we want to say at this point, we would have to make decisions based on a lot of other things impacting us at this point. So you probably want me to be more definitive, and I guess the most definitive I can say is put in your application now, because highly unlikely that there would be funds, with the exception of the ILCs, which are a little bit more ongoing, and you do have an opportunity to in April come back with a group of employers and apply for those.
Great, thank you very much, and I can let the MMA members be rest assured that in our conversations with legislators, we'll put a bug in their ear for going pro funding, and maybe it'll take root and we'll get that second appropriation somewhere down the road. Who knows? Next question we have deals with the fact finding that Michigan Works does. I'm a first-time person who wants to maybe apply for this program for my company. What should I expect when I sit down with Michigan Works for fact finding?
Yeah, I think great question. And even if you're you're contemplating it, you're not sure if you're going to, I would still pick up the phone and make that call, because they're going to sit down, they're going to want to understand, your business. Where are you today? Where are the gaps? Where do you see the need for training? And they may say, this is great, let's put together a training, Going Pro Training Fund application, but in asking you about your staffing levels, your retention, what's your retention rate? What are your wages? How do those wages compare to others in the region? What are the barriers that, you think your company is facing? They may also say, you know what? We have some additional services and programs over here, some federally funded programs, some local initiatives. And so they may say, let's go that route versus going pro, or they may say, let's go going pro and let's also braid in these other funding. So they're really going to talk to you in generalities about the business to some level, but then they're going to get into Where do you hope to be down the road? What training do you think you're needing? Is it on-the-job training? Is it classroom training? Who is a vendor you've worked with? What's worked before? What's not worked before? Do your employees have the capacity to take it on right now? Let's talk about your business cycle for calendar year 21. When would be an appropriate time for you to take on the training? They're going to ask you all of those things to put you in the best position to not only apply for and receive a training fund application, but to also just make you aware of all the other resources through workforce development and other sources that can support your business.
Thank you for that answer and that great suggestion for those first-time folks who are looking to apply for the first time. We're down to our last question, and this one is all about doing training sessions for a company. The question reads, would you be able to conduct a training session for a company on Going Pro? We have 7 different facilities in Michigan. Thank you very much for your work.
Again, we would direct you to your local Michigan Works agency. They're going to be, and that's what they're setting up right now, is trainings directly to address what you've asked for, to really walk you through the process, hold your hand, really help put together that strong application. So I would, again, reach out. You have that contact at your local Michigan Works agency. Absolutely reach out to them, and they can assist and help you answer any of those questions or put some training together. And I would just add, thank you for having 7 locations in Michigan.
For sure.
Let's make it 8 or 9.
For sure, that is awesome. Stephanie and your team, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We are very grateful for the relationship that we have with you and to be able to work with you to promote Going Pro and to promote workforce development in the state of Michigan. And like you, asking those folks with 7 locations to go to 8, 9, or 10. We are happy that if there is any information you need us to share with our membership down the road, please feel free to reach out to us at any time. For the folks on the webinar, you see the slide there for other questions that you might have. Keenan Wade is the administrative manager for Leo. Virginia Zimmerman is a Going Pro Talent Fund analyst, along with Kevin Cordes. We'll make sure that those email addresses are shared with you, as well as the full slide deck when we receive it from Stephanie and her team. Anything else you'd like to leave us with, Stephanie, before we wrap things up?
No, just again, Dave, just thank you again for your partnership. Thank you again for your membership and for everything they're doing to keep Michigan moving forward. Right, we're all in this together, and we at Leo and the state of Michigan really stand side by side with you to address your talent needs. And so just thank you very much for the opportunity today. And to my team, thank you. This program has only grown and expanded because of partnerships like MMA and because of our strong team. So shout out to them as well. And just thank you again.
Great, thank you, Stephanie. Just a reminder to MMA members, we do have webinars and other resources available at the MMA Learning Center. You can find that at our website, mimfg.org. Definitely check that out. We've got webinars from the MyOSHA rules to Going Pro to a number of other items. So definitely check that out. Don't forget, we are less than 8 days away from the election. So if you haven't voted already, feel free to make sure you got a plan to vote or join folks on Election Day when the polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on November 3rd. Speaking of the election, don't forget our next webinar for the MMA will be on Friday, November 6th. It's our Election 2020 Analyzing the Results, or at least whatever results we have at that time. That will be with Mike Johnston and the full government affairs team. Starts at 1:30 on Friday, November the 6th. So definitely check it out. Feel free to register online. We actually probably have a number of emails out on that with links that will take you to the registration site. So on behalf of Delaney McKinney and Dane Cook, who are behind the scenes producing this, and for all the MMA members, thank you for joining us today. I promised Stephanie that I would end my typical ending, amend it, so I will say, go green, go blue, go Broncos. We'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.